You think that I will not fight. Vain is this your resolve. Nature will compel you. The word yat is used, meaning if. Look how God mentions egotism in both of these verses, the first and the previous verse. Shri Krishna tells Arjun that if indulging in self-conceit and holding on to his ego, Arjun thinks that I will not fight, then this resolve is a myth, is futile, it is meaningless, it is worthless, and it is vain. If Arjun does not understand, then Shri Krishna is ready to explain to him. But if Arjun holds on to self-conceit and thinks that I will not fight, then this resolve is in vain. Many times what happens is that one does what the other person is correct and what he's saying is right, but yet despite this, because of one's own egotism, he has held on to something that I said this, so how can I change this? And because of this, he does not leave it. He knows from the inside that the other person is right, but he thinks that I have to prove myself right, because if I admit it, otherwise I'll be proved wrong about it. That is why a person holds on to it. Shri Krishna is opposing this vanity. Shri Krishna has already said in the previous verse that if from self-conceit you will not listen to me, then you shall perish. This is not God's cruelty, and God is not giving a threat. God is showering his compassion. If a son is doing wrong activities, then an understanding father will immediately explain to him that, son, you should not do this, you should do this. If I were in your place, then I would do this would happen and that would happen. Son, this is the right thing to do. This is how an understanding father explains it to his son. And after explaining it to his son for an hour, if the son says that, Father, what you're saying is right, but am I going to do this? Then what will the father do? If the son says that I will not give up my egotism, then the father says, go, you look after yourself, what else can I do? And because Shri Krishna is concerned, that is why he says that, Arjun, I am looking at your own good. I am looking at your well-being. And if you don't walk on this path, then you'll perish, Arjun. In this verse, God has repeated the same thing about egotism and says that, Arjun, if you do not listen to what I have to say because of any reason, then this will happen. But if you look at it this way, then there's only one thing that is opposing God, egotism. Otherwise, why else would a person oppose God? God says that if you still do not believe in this, then this means that you're not ready to give up your egotism. That which sinks us is not opposition to God, it is our egotism that sinks us. We should understand these two verses in this way. If you read a translation, then it will say that if you do not listen to me because of egotism, then you'll die and you'll be finished. People then feel that, is God saying this, that he'll perish? One is not going to perish from God's words, one is going to perish from one's own egotism. If a person thinks holds onto a rock and jumps into the sea and he's drowning and he screams, save me, save me, the person standing by the shore knows and shouts to him that, give up the rock, give up the rock, give up the rock. The person replies that, no, I'll hold on to the rock. Then the person standing by the shore says, if you hold on to the rock, then you'll drown. If the other person says that I drown because you said it, then this is incorrect, because a person drowned as a result of him holding on to the rock and not because of the person by the shore saying anything. In the same way, God is saying that Arjun should leave this egotism, otherwise he will perish. This is not God giving a punishment. This is God's clarification that if you drown and if you perish, then it's because of the rock that is your egotism. God is very clear about his thinking. God says that whether you believe this thing or not, am I going to benefit from it anyway? No. If you believe it, then you will gain from it. But if you don't believe it, then you'll suffer the loss. And God said while explaining psychology that Arjun's resolve not to fight is a myth, in vain, a waste, and futile. This is because nature will compel Arjun to fight. Arjun's nature will take him to fight. Shri Krishna tells Arjun that there is a kshatriyatva, a warriorness in his blood. It is fine that if a warrior gets ill, then he needs some rest, and in the same way, Arjun has fallen mentally ill, and that is why he feels that I should go away and leave the battlefield. But when Arjun will regain his true self, then he'll begin to regret doing this. I'll remind you of one event. After 12 years of living in the forest, the Pandavas had to spend the 13th year anonymously. The Pandavas stayed in the kingdom of King Virat. We all know the story. Arjun stayed there as Brihanala, a woman, as Uttara's dance teacher. At that time, an event arose where Duryodhana's people, the Kauravas, got a hint from somewhere that the Pandavas are there. And Duryodhana was intelligent. He was not of a pure intellect, and he was described earlier in this chapter, but he was intelligent. He got a hint that the Pandavas were hidden there, and he thought about how to make the Pandavas appear. Duryodhana thought that I should do such an activity of dharma, that the Pandavas would not be able to bear it. Duryodhana stole King Virat's cows and began running. They found out. First of all, King Virat's army went there. King Virat's army were far outnumbered by the Kauravas' army. King Virat himself had gone out of the town, and therefore his son Uttar, the brother of Uttara, went. He came running back from the battlefield within the safe boundaries of the town. He said that, "Mother, Duryodhana and the Kauravas have come. They have stolen the cows and our soldiers are losing. What should I do?" He became scared and confused. Arjun was sitting there as Brianala, a woman. He heard that the Kauravas were running away, having stolen the cows. Arjun said, "Come." Arjun sat in the chariot and told Uttar to come. Uttar was confused because he thought that he, or I should say in brackets, she, was the dance teacher of his sister. Uttar said that, "Did you know that the Kauravas are there and that they're very powerful? Why are you taking me there? Because I want to come back. I will run away." Arjun said, "Sit. You know who you are, sitting with in a chariot?" And he defeated the Kauravas. This is Arjun's nature. Otherwise, he was not sought for, and he was not supposed to do it. He had to remain hidden as a woman, but he could not remain so. Sri Krishna is telling Arjun that this is in Arjun's blood, and this is Arjun's nature. And then when Arjun's saying that he does not want to fight, then how will this work? Nature will compel Arjun. Arjun's nature will take him there. It will take him in. If Arjun would go to the forest, then he'll begin hunting in the jungle. Arjun cannot go without a bow and arrows. Nature will compel him and drive him back to battle. What we have to understand from this verse is that many times we also make this mistake. We leave what is our nature, that which is our duty, and that which is our natural karma for us. And then when the opportunity goes, then we look back and regret. We think that it would have been so good if we had done this. It would have been so good if this had happened. You should do it at the right time, at that time. First of all, a person should learn to recognize his sva, own self. Then second, one should learn to recognize his svabhav, my own nature, to be amended after you read the commentary in verse 62. Then third, one should learn to recognize his svabhavik karma, work according to his own nature. Fourthly, one should learn to recognize the circumstances that have arisen for him to perform his svabhavik karma, work according to his nature. Hello, our star singer is back. And fifth, when all of the senses, these come together, then one should learn not to turn back. Only then will they attain success, and only then will one attain siddhi, perfection. This is the step-by-step method. You should keep this written. This is very necessary. This has come from God's inspiration. I have not read this anywhere. I've just thought about this. This is what development is there, and that is what God says here. Only then will one attain siddhi, perfection. Let's turn to verse 60. You got handouts? I think there's